How's it going, everybody? How the hell are you? Welcome to the Nerdy Jock. I'm the Nerdy Jock, Nick Angle, and this is a little thing about D&D. All right, so you guys have heard about the game D&D. That's right. Maybe you've been a little bit shy on jumping into a game or building a character, and you sit there and you watch Critical Role and you think, man, those characters are cool. I wish I could have as much fun as they are. Well, guys, this is my little quick and dirty on how to make a fun D&D character. Guys, I've put this together because I actually DM a game right now with a bunch of people that are basically first-timers. And I have helped them build a character, and I want to share that knowledge with you guys because I think having fun at D&D is really easy to do. You just gotta be willing to put yourself out there a little bit. Now, when we're building a D&D character, we're always looking for, I don't know, the hero, right? I want to be the guy, I want to be, Superman, or I want to be the knight that takes down the dragon, and that's great. But remember that we're all pretty much starting from level 1. And when you take down a dragon, you're a little further down the road. So let's have a character that can be fun, that we can grow with, and we can really get into the game of D&D. So let's start with, well, the stats. All right, so we're sitting down, we want to build a character, and you don't know where to start. That's okay. That's why I'm here, right? All right, first thing you need a handy bit of set of dice, and maybe the player's handbook. And if you don't have the player's handbook, that's okay, because, well, I do. But what you can do is get yourself to a little site called D&D Beyond. Yes, they so help you build a character, but you're looking to build a fun character. That's okay, we're going to get into that. But D&D Beyond is a great tool for DMs, for new players, for even old players to use, and it kind of does a lot of the work for you. But the work we're going to do is going to take that maybe a little step further. So, the first thing you got to think of is I got to roll some stats for my character. The stats you're looking at are things like strength, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, intelligence, and charisma. Now, to roll those stats, this is kind of how I do it, and I have my own little, shall we say, house rules. You can use these too, and by all means use them because it makes the character a little bit more interesting. So here's what you do. You're going to take 4 6-sided dice. That's right, 4. You're going to roll all 4 of them. Re-roll 1s. For the love of God, re-roll 1s. And for you purists out there, go suck a lemon. Re-roll 1s, it makes things more fun. It just does. And you're going to roll those 6 times. Now, I did say we were going to make it fun, right? So do me a favor and roll 1 more time. That's right, roll it 7 times. So you should have 7 stats sitting in front of you waiting to go into somewhere. All right, now, D&D Beyond is actually going to take you into picking a race. Now, I like to actually skip this part, and I like to go into picking a class. Now, what's a class, you might ask? Well, a class is kind of what the character's gonna be and what they do. So you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. Do I want to be an awesome magic user? Do I want to be rough and tumble and get in there and mix it up and maybe even be a bit of a tank? Or do I want to do both? A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Totally cool. Once you've figured that out, you can look at the classes. Now, what is a class? A class is a rogue, kind of like maybe a bit of a seedy guy, or maybe just, sleight of hand, a trickster, all that fun stuff. You could be a barbarian. Bit of a dumb guy, but huge, strong, powerful, likes to get in there, likes to get dirty, kind of charges in head first. Maybe you want to be a druid, a little bit more of nature and magic, or you want to be a paladin. You're a holy knight. Think crusades, if you will. A little bit of column A, and then you also have a little bit of magic, which is a bit of column B. Kind of a cool mix. Now, if you don't really like the fighting part of it, you can lean towards maybe a cleric, where you're more into the healing side. You can still punch people if you really, they get out of hand. But you're a little bit, more of the savior of the group, let's be honest. All right, so you figured out your class. Now here is where it gets fun. A lot of times people pick their race before their class, and they look at the races and they think, well, if I want to be strong, I want to be a half-orc, or I want to be a dwarf, or I want to be nimble and quick with bow and arrow, so I want to be an elf. This is why I pick the class before the race. It kind of, well, it throws everything on its head. This is where you can really be creative. Let's say you want to be a barbarian, but you also really like, I don't know, halflings or gnomes. Not exactly your typical barbarian race, right? Okay, but maybe you're a halfling who always wanted to be this big, strong, knight, and were told you could never do it. But why can't you? This is D&D. It's make-believe. It's stuff in our own heads, and we play the game. Now, if that's what you want to do, by all means, go for it. And really, DMs, it is on you to make sure that this is fun. It really just, throws everything up in the air. Do what you want. It's a creative game. Be creative. Now, when we're looking at those things, we think, okay, I've got my class, I've got my race, now where am I going to put my stats? Well, let's look at stats. All right, your first stat is strength, right? Strength measures, how strong you are, how much you can lift, your natural athletic ability. If you want to pick up a rock and throw it, somebody's probably going to ask you to roll a strength check. Now, this is a great stat, and especially if you're going to be a barbarian, it's probably one you want to put a lot of points into. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but maybe a good idea. All right, the next stat is dexterity. Now, dexterity is basically how dexterous you are, how agile you are. Can you run up a wall and leap off of it? Can you run and jump over that river? Basically, can you get out of the way if things are being thrown at you? Dexterity is a great stat for monks or rangers, even rogues, really. But why not have a super dexterous barbarian? By the way, dexterous is not a word. That's my barbarian talking. All right, the third stat now, I will say this. This is probably the most important stat, I think, out there. Your constitution. Really, it's how hardy you are. How many hits you can take. This particular stat really dictates your hit points, your health, all that kind of stuff. Now, it doesn't really do anything for the skills that we're going to get into later, but I think it's probably the most important for everybody, any class, any race that is out there going. So really think long and hard. Do I want to be pretty hardy, or maybe do I want to be a dwarf that is a fighter who is a bit of a pushover? Could be fun. All right, the next stat is intelligence. Now, what is intelligence? Intelligence is, well, how smart you are. Basically, it's book smarts, really, because we have another stat that also deals in somewhat kind of intelligence, but not really. But intelligence is really how book smart you are, how you can recall information. If you're out in nature, can you look at something and know what it is? If you're investigating a room, can you see clues? Are you Sherlock Holmes or you Sherlock don't? Now, the fifth stat is wisdom. So if intelligence is book smarts, wisdom is street smarts. How perceptive are you? Your intuition, are you aware of your surroundings? Now, this is kind of an interesting stat and a fun one too, because this is where you can really start to create your character, in that maybe if you're a barbarian and you don't want to be all that aware of your surroundings, maybe you're not so high in wisdom, but maybe you're higher in intelligence, which means that you are really studied. Or maybe you just want to be lousy in both. But it's an interesting stat because it kind of dictates a bunch of other stuff. All right, the last one, it's probably my favorite. It's charisma. Now, a lot of people look at this particular stat and kind of think of it as a dump stat, but it's really not. It really dictates your overall leadership skills, whether or not you're intimidating, can you deceive people if, you get into a sticky situation? Can you lie your way out of it? This is a great stat when you're looking at like bards and rogues and heck, even barbarians, really. I mean, nothing says fun like a very charismatic barbarian, let me tell you. All right, so we've got our stats. We've got them locked in. Now, let's talk about modifiers. Now, if you think of a stat as a base stat, that would be 10. So 10 is kind of like everybody is at a 10. Once you go above that by 2, you start getting pluses. So you'll get a +1 or a +2 if you go a little bit higher, +3, yada yada. Now if you go below 10, now you're starting to dock marks, and every time you roll to do a check, you're going to lose points instead of adding points. Now, again, this is really where your creativity can come into your character, and that's why I said at the beginning of this, roll 7 stats, because that 7 stats gives you room to play. If you are looking at your character, and let's say you roll really well, and you just want to have this stacked dude, by all means, do it. Understand your DM, though, is probably going to make things a little bit more difficult for you. But that's okay. It's what this game's all about. Now, if you want to look at your character and say, you know what, I really like all the stats that I've rolled here, but I might want to dumb it down here because I've got one that's really not so good, take that one and throw it in. This is really where you get to kind of build your character, and it comes into the backstory. All right, backstories of characters. We're creating a character, right? We're getting a little bit creative. For the love of God, not every backstory has to be awful. Yeah, I said it. D&D people, you understand what I'm talking about. Everybody's got this awful backstory. I mean, it's just always sad and doom and gloom and why am I fighting and I'm out for revenge and I mean, it's easy to write that stuff for sure, but sometimes it can just be, I don't know, I was a happy-go-lucky kid, I stumbled into a bar and I got swept away on an adventure, and man, do I love the outdoors. It can literally be that easy. It doesn't have to be an epilogue. It doesn't have to be, pillars of the earth. It can literally be a sentence or two. Just make sure that you like it. Make sure that you connect with it. And make sure it's fun for you. All right, guys, a little bit more on backstory. So we've written a little bit, right? Okay, great. Now, this is where you're going to get into the nuances because your backstory is probably going to dictate a little bit into where you're putting your stats as well. So you can always change things around. Remember, you're not done until you're done. So think of it this way. Do I want my character to be me in a story fighting dungeons and dragons and looting gold and getting the girl? Or do I want to step outside of myself and give myself something that I didn't think was maybe possible? That's the great thing about D&D. D&D, anything's possible. Remember, you don't win D&D. You don't lose D&D either. You just play. And if you get a good enough DM, they understand that. So have fun with it. Try new things. Twist things around. Don't say you're finished a character because you went from A, B, to C, to D. Go straight to D if you want to. Jump back to A. Maybe try C. Go back to B. It all just depends on you and where you want to go with it. Now, that's sort of my quick and dirty. We can go on from there. You guys let me know in the comments if you want to hear more. If you want to talk about a specific build, we can certainly build a character from start to finish, and I can kind of even show you more what I'm talking about. But you guys let me know. I hope this helps. But please remember, hit that like button, smack that subscribe. We're just trying to build this channel, baby. And remember, guys, it's always game time. Let's go, baby!